The clock on the wall of Black Ridge Garage read 12:47 a.m. when the first knock came. It was soft, so soft that Marcus almost didn't hear it over the clang of metal and the hiss of the welding torch in Leo's hands. But something made him stop. Something in the air shifted, like the way animals sense a storm before it arrives. He set down the wrench he'd been holding and tilted his head, listening. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Not loud, not frantic, just persistent. Marcus exchanged a glance with Leo, who lowered his torch and pulled up his mask. Across the garage, Arthur, gray-haired, broad-shouldered, and weathered by 60 years of hard living, straightened from beneath the hood of a Harley and wiped his hands on an oil-stained rag. "You expecting someone?" Arthur asked, his voice a low rumble. "No," Marcus replied. The three men moved together, instinct honed by years of living on the edges of society. They weren't criminals, not anymore, but they knew danger when it knocked. Marcus reached the door first. His hand hovered over the lock for just a moment. Then, with a deep breath, he pulled it open. Standing in the pale glow of the single streetlight outside were two children. The older one, a boy, looked no more than 16. His face was gaunt, hollowed out by exhaustion and something deeper. His clothes were wrinkled and dusty, his sneakers worn thin at the soles. His eyes darted past Marcus into the garage, not with curiosity, but with calculation. He was assessing, measuring, preparing to run if he needed to. Behind him, half hidden in his shadow, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her hair was tangled, her clothes too big for her small frame, and in her arms she clutched a stuffed rabbit, faded, patched, and loved beyond recognition. She didn't look at Marcus. She stared at the ground, at the darkness behind them, at the wind that moved through the empty streets. She looked like someone who had learned not to trust the world. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. "What do you need?" he asked, his voice careful, controlled. The boy swallowed. His jaw clenched, and for a moment Marcus thought he might turn and run, but then he spoke, and his voice cracked with the weight of everything he was carrying. "Not for me," he said quietly. "I'm scared for her." Those words hung in the cold air like smoke. Marcus looked down at the little girl. She still didn't look up. Her fingers tightened around the rabbit, and her lips moved silently, as if she were whispering something only she could hear. "We just need one night," the boy continued, his voice trembling now. "Just let her sleep somewhere safe. I'll stay outside. We'll leave in the morning. I promise we won't cause any trouble." Marcus studied him. He saw the desperation, the fear, the love, and he saw himself, 25 years ago, standing on a street corner with nowhere to go and no one to trust. Without a word, Marcus stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in, both of you." A sanctuary in steel and oil. The warmth of the garage hit them immediately. Inside, the space was cluttered but organized. Motorcycles in various states of repair lined the walls, tools hung on pegboards, and the smell of oil, metal, and old leather filled the air. It wasn't clean, it wasn't fancy, but it was real. Leo set down his torch and pulled off his gloves. He was younger than Marcus, maybe 30, with ink covering both arms and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He looked dangerous, but when he saw the little girl, his expression softened. "Hey there," he said gently. The girl didn't respond. She pressed closer to her brother. Arthur walked over slowly, his heavy boots echoing on the concrete floor. He was a man who had lived 1,000 lives, some good, some bad, but his eyes were kind. "You hungry?" he asked. The boy opened his mouth to say no, but his stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. His face flushed with embarrassment. Arthur chuckled softly. "Thought so? Come on." He led them to a small corner of the garage where a battered couch sat next to a mini-fridge and a hot plate. It wasn't much, but it was home for the 3 men who spent more time here than anywhere else. Leo grabbed a blanket from a cabinet and spread it over the couch. Arthur heated up some milk in a dented saucepan and poured it into 2 mugs. Marcus pulled out a box of crackers and some cheese from the fridge. The boy, his name was Noah, he finally told them, sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, his eyes never leaving the door. The little girl, Emma, sat beside him, her rabbit still clutched tightly in her arms. Marcus handed her the warm mug. "Careful, it's hot." She looked up at him for the first time, and their eyes met. Hers were blue, wide, and filled with a sadness that no child should ever carry. "Thank you," she whispered, so quietly Marcus almost didn't hear it. His throat tightened. "You're welcome, sweetheart." The weight of a brother's love. As the night deepened, the garage grew quieter. Leo went back to his welding, the sparks dancing in the darkness like fireflies. Arthur returned to the Harley, his hands moving with the muscle memory of decades. Marcus sat on a stool near the couch, watching the children. Emma sipped her milk slowly, her small hands wrapped around the mug. When she finished, she set it down carefully and curled up on the couch, her head resting on the armrest, the rabbit tucked under her chin. Within minutes, her breathing slowed, her body relaxed, and for the first time in who knows how long, she slept. But Noah didn't. He sat rigid, his back straight, his eyes locked on the door. Every sound made him flinch, every shadow made his muscles tense. Marcus watched him for a long time before he finally spoke. "You don't have to stay awake, kid," he said quietly. "We'll keep watch." Noah shook his head. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because if something happens," his voice broke, "if someone comes, I need to be ready." Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Who are you running from, kid?" Noah's jaw clenched. For a moment, Marcus didn't think he would answer. But then, slowly, the words came. "Our mom. She got involved with someone, a bad guy. He's dangerous. And when things got bad, she chose him over us." Marcus's chest tightened. "We tried to stay," Noah continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "But he started hurting Emma. Not physically, not yet, but the way he looked at her, the way he talked to her, his hands balled into fists. I couldn't let it happen, so we left." "How long ago?" 3 days. 3 days. 2 children, alone on the streets, running from a nightmare. Marcus felt a familiar anger rise in his chest, the kind that had gotten him into trouble in his younger years. But he pushed it down. Anger wouldn't help these kids. "You did the right thing," Marcus said firmly. "You protected her. That takes guts." Noah's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let them fall. "I'm so tired," he admitted. "I haven't slept since we left. I'm scared that if I close my eyes, something will happen to her." Marcus stood and walked over. He placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, firm and steady. "You did your part. Now let me do mine. I'll stay awake. I'll watch the door. Nothing's getting in here tonight, I promise." Noah looked up at him, searching his face for a reason not to trust him, but all he saw was truth. Slowly, he nodded. He lay down on the floor beside the couch, close enough to reach Emma if she woke, and within minutes, exhaustion finally claimed him. Marcus watched them both for a long time. Then he pulled up a chair, positioned it by the door, and kept his promise. The morning light. When the sun rose, it came slowly, filtering through the dusty windows of Black Ridge Garage in long golden beams. The light touched the motorcycles, the tools, the sleeping children. Emma stirred first. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment she looked confused. Then she saw the garage, the blanket, the men working quietly nearby. And she smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. Marcus saw it, and something inside him shifted. Over the next few hours, things began to happen. Phone calls were made. A social worker arrived, a kind woman named Maria, who spoke softly and listened carefully. Questions were asked, gently, patiently. Noah told their story again, his voice stronger now. Emma stayed close to him, but she nodded when Maria asked if she felt safe. "Yes," she whispered. "I feel safe here." "Good. We're going to make sure you stay safe." The drawing. A week later, Emma sat at a small folding table in the corner of the garage, coloring with a set of pencils Maria had brought. She worked quietly, her tongue poking out in concentration. When she finished, she picked up the paper and carried it over to Arthur, who was tightening a bolt on a bike. "For you," she said, shyly. Arthur set down his wrench and took the paper. His rough, calloused hands looked almost comical holding the delicate drawing. It showed a large bird, maybe an eagle, with wide, powerful wings spread protectively over two small figures below. Arthur's eyes softened. "What's this, little one?" Emma looked at her brother, then back at Arthur. "It's a protector," she said softly. "Someone who keeps people safe." Arthur's throat tightened. He looked at Marcus, then at Leo, then back at the drawing. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you." Noah, sitting nearby, stared at the picture. His eyes filled with tears, and this time he let them fall. Because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't carrying the weight alone. Epilogue. Paths of Honor. Months later, Emma and Noah were placed with a foster family, a good one, vetted and kind, but they still came back to Black Ridge Garage every Saturday. Emma would draw, Noah would help with the bikes, and Marcus, Leo, and Arthur would watch over them the way they always had. Because sometimes, the people the world fears the most are the ones who protect the most fiercely. And sometimes, one single night can change everything. Honor isn't found in titles or gold. It's found in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose to stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. Paths of Honor.